All right, welcome everyone. It's time for another deep dive to keep you right on track for those UPSC exams. We're looking at April 5th, 2025 news today, and well, this is just part one. We've got a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. Some of this might even feel like a bit of revision, which is never a bad thing, right? We're going to be digging into some environmental concerns bubbling up around the Dhansiri River. Then there's this really odd U.S. tariff situation you wouldn't believe. It involves the Heard and McDonald Islands, of all places. We'll be looking at how India and Thailand are strengthening their ties, a brand new discovery courtesy of the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS for short. And then we'll touch on the increasing importance of seaweed farming, the rumblings of Mount Marapi, Delhi's plans for artificial rain, what they're finding with those camera traps in the Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary, the GI tag that's finally been given to Kannadippaya, and of course the latest on exercise INDRA.
Sounds like we've got a packed agenda.
We do. So let's kick things off with, well, let's call it a developing environmental situation. The Dhansiri River is facing some serious scrutiny right now.
Yeah, environmentalists are raising some major red flags with the Central Pollution Control Board, the CPCB.
Yeah.
But what they're saying is the discharge of some pretty nasty stuff, hazardous effluents from the Numaligarh Refinery Limited, NRL. The big worry here is the potential for some, well, pretty significant damage to the river's ecosystem and everything around it.
Right. And for our listeners prepping for UPSC, this is a perfect example of how these regulatory bodies like the CPCB come into play when we're talking about protecting the environment. So before we go any further, maybe a quick refresher on the Dhansiri River itself would be helpful, just to really understand the scope of what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're talking about the main river that flows through Golaghat district in Assam and the Dimapur district of Nagaland. It's a major tributary of the Brahmaputra, flowing in from the left bank. It starts its journey way up in the mountains at Lasang Peak in Nagaland. From there, it flows northwest for about 40 kilometers and then kind of changes direction, heading northeast for about 76 kilometers until it reaches Dimapur. After that, it mostly flows north until it gets to Golaghat, and that's where it makes a pretty sharp turn to the northwest to finally join the Brahmaputra at a place called Dhansiri in Assam. All in all, we're talking about a river that stretches for about 352 kilometers with a catchment area of 12,220 square kilometers. And here's the kicker. This river forms a natural border between Nagaland and Assam, and that area is known for its incredible biodiversity. Plus, you've got the Dhansiri Reserve Forest and the Intanki National Park right there along its banks. So any kind of pollution here could have a ripple effect throughout a very delicate ecosystem.
Yeah, and when we're talking about refinery effluents, we're talking about a whole mix of pollutants, heavy metals, hydrocarbons, you name it. And this stuff is toxic, plain and simple. It can poison aquatic life, disrupt the entire food chain, starting with the tiny organisms all the way up to fish and larger animals. The hydrocarbons, those can form a layer on the water, suffocating the river, making it hard for oxygen to get in. That harms anything that needs the river, birds, mammals, everything. In a place as rich in biodiversity as this, those toxins can set off a chain reaction, throwing the whole ecosystem out of balance. It could even impact the health of the forests in that national park we were talking about. And that, of course, ties directly into the UPSC syllabus, specifically environment, pollution, river systems, and biodiversity hotspots.
Makes you think, doesn't it? The interconnectedness of it all.
Yeah.
Now, for something completely different, something that feels a little bit like a head-scratcher on the international stage, the U.S. president has decided to impose a 10% tariff on imports from the Heard and McDonald Islands. Now, here's the really strange part. As far as anyone knows, these islands don't export anything to the U.S. It's a pretty bizarre move, isn't it? What's the logic there?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. You're right. The direct economic impact is probably going to be next to nothing. But these kinds of actions often signal something bigger. It could be a way of telegraphing broader geopolitical goals, or maybe it's linked to some strategic or administrative thinking that we're not seeing right now. It could be a blanket policy decision applied to specific territories, or maybe a subtle message in the language of diplomacy. It definitely makes you realize that international trade is far more complex than just looking at what's being shipped back and forth. And that's an important takeaway for anyone studying international relations and trade policy, especially for the UPSC.
Now, these islands themselves are fascinating, geographically speaking. They're way out there, this remote volcanic archipelago in the southern Indian Ocean. We're talking about a good 4,100 kilometers southwest of Perth in Australia and about 1,600 kilometers north of Antarctica. They're Australian external territories administered by the Australian government. Geologically, they're incredibly active, with Heard Island being home to Big Ben, an active volcano, and its highest point, Mawson Peak, which is actually the tallest mountain in all of Australia, if you don't count the mainland and Tasmania, reaching a height of 2,745 meters. Then you have McDonald Island, smaller but no less dramatic. It's been going through some serious volcanic activity recently, actually doubling in size in the late 1990s and early 2000s. And here's a fascinating tidbit for all the geology buffs out there. They're the only volcanically active subantarctic islands, which makes them an amazing natural laboratory for studying all sorts of things: Earth processes, the impacts of climate change, glacial behavior, you name it. Environmentally speaking, they're a real treasure trove. They've been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1997 and are managed as a strict nature reserve. They provide a vital habitat for a huge number of marine birds and mammals, including penguins, elephant seals, and a wide variety of seabirds. What makes them even more valuable is that they're completely free of invasive species, making them essential for research on biodiversity and evolution. So while this whole tariff thing might seem a bit perplexing, there's no doubt that these islands are incredibly important, both geographically and ecologically.
You've hit the nail on the head there. The absence of invasive species is what really makes these islands unique, a pristine environment for scientific study. It's like a snapshot of what ecosystems can be like without human interference. If you're taking notes for your UPSC, make sure you highlight their sub-Antarctic location, their volcanic nature, their status as an Australian territory, and of course their significance as a UNESCO site and a haven for biodiversity. And hey, maybe this odd tariff situation will help you remember all that.
That's a good point. Sometimes the most unexpected things can be memory triggers, right? Now, let's shift our focus to a region a little closer to home. Our Prime Minister recently concluded a visit to Thailand, and it seems like it was a pretty successful one. They've inked a whole bunch of agreements and partnerships, solidifying the relationship between the two countries.
It was a pretty big deal. Thailand occupies a very strategic position, geographically and politically, right in the heart of mainland Southeast Asia. It's like a bridge, both on land and at sea, linking India to the ASEAN bloc. Bordering Myanmar to the northwest, Laos to the northeast, Cambodia to the east, and Malaysia down south, it's right in the thick of things. And with access to both the Andaman Sea to the southwest and the Gulf of Thailand to the south, it plays a crucial role in the growing blue economy and maintaining maritime security in the Indo-Pacific. If you're prepping for your UPSC exams, you'll definitely want to remember key facts like its capital, Bangkok, its currency, the Thai baht, its official language, Thai, and its dominant religion, Theravada Buddhism, practiced by about 95% of the population. Thailand is a key player in India's Act East policy and our overall vision for the Indo-Pacific region.
Geographically, Thailand has it all. You've got towering mountains like Doi Inthanon, which peaks at around 2,565 meters, and other notable ones like Doi Chiang Dao and Doi Luang Cheng Dao. Then there are the mighty rivers, the Chao Phraya, which winds its way through Bangkok and is essential for transportation and irrigation, and the Mekong, one of Southeast Asia's longest rivers, forming a natural border with Laos. The climate is mostly shaped by the southwest and northeast monsoons, resulting in a predominantly tropical wet and dry climate, kind of like a savanna, with tropical monsoon conditions in the south and east, and even some pockets of tropical rainforest. Thailand is also a resource-rich country, a major producer of rubber, rice, tin, and natural gas, and one of the world's leading exporters of rubber, fruits, vegetables, and rice. Culturally, it's a treasure trove, with UNESCO World Heritage Sites like the historic city of Ayutthaya, the Sukhothai Historical Park, and of course the iconic Wat Pho Temple in Bangkok. Our relationship with Thailand is multifaceted, with strong ties through ASEAN and BIMSTEC, driven by India's Act East policy. We've got cooperation on maritime security, trade agreements, and a flourishing tourism partnership. It's a relationship rooted in history and culture, going back centuries.
And that's really important to remember when you're studying India-Thailand relations for the UPSC. Understanding Thailand's geography, its place in Southeast Asia, its mountains and rivers, its climate, its resources, and its cultural richness. All of that helps you grasp the depth and complexity of the bilateral ties and their significance in India's foreign policy, especially within the ASEAN framework.
It's like a puzzle, isn't it? All these pieces fitting together. Speaking of puzzles, let's turn our attention to the cosmos for a moment. An international team of astronomers working with the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, or TESS, have made a new discovery. Now, unfortunately, our sources didn't go into the specifics of what they found, but the fact that TESS keeps making these breakthroughs is pretty exciting, right? Especially for those of you following the latest in science and technology, particularly in space exploration.
Absolutely. TESS was launched by NASA back in March of 2018. It's a relatively small but incredibly powerful space telescope designed specifically to hunt for exoplanets, planets orbiting stars other than our own sun. You can think of it as the successor to the Kepler Space Telescope, building upon its legacy of amazing discoveries.
Right. And TESS works by staring at stars, looking for tiny dips in their brightness. And that can indicate that a planet is passing in front of the star, blocking some of its light. It's a method called the transit method. And from those dips in brightness, scientists can figure out the size of the planet and how long it takes to orbit its star. One of the main goals, of course, is to find planets that might be habitable, planets within the habitable zone of their stars, where the temperature might be just right for liquid water to exist on the surface. Although its primary mission was for 2 years, ending in July 2020, TESS is still going strong in an extended mission collecting more and more data. It's already found a remarkable variety of exoplanets, from small rocky planets to massive gas giants, showing us just how diverse planetary systems can be. In its primary mission alone, it imaged about 75% of the sky and confirmed the existence of 66 new exoplanets. So each new discovery is another piece of the puzzle, helping us understand how planets form and whether there might be life out there beyond our own little corner of the universe. What is it about the way TESS works that makes it so good for follow-up studies? I've always wondered about that.
Well, one of the key things is that TESS is focused on brighter nearby stars, and that's really important. When you find a transiting planet around a star that's bright and relatively close, it makes it much easier to study in detail. Astronomers can use larger telescopes, both on the ground and in space, to observe these planets and learn more about them. They can analyze their atmospheres, looking for signs of things like water vapor, methane, oxygen, the kinds of things that might indicate the presence of life. So for anyone studying for the UPSC, understanding the transit method, the idea of the habitable zone and the role that missions like TESS play in exoplanetary science is essential. It's cutting-edge stuff, and it's changing our understanding of the universe.
It's mind-blowing, isn't it? Now, let's bring it back down to Earth, literally, and talk about something that's both environmentally friendly and has huge economic potential. Seaweed farming. It's been gaining a lot of traction lately as a sustainable and profitable industry worldwide.
That's right. In India, we've got the Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana, PMMSY, which has set a pretty ambitious goal of boosting seaweed production to 1.12 million tons within the next 5 years. That just goes to show how important seaweed is becoming on a global scale. Right now, the industry is worth about $5.6 billion, and India is looking to increase its share of that pie.
Now, for those who might not be familiar, what exactly is seaweed? Well, put simply, it's a marine plant that grows in the ocean. But don't let that simple definition fool you. Seaweed is packed with nutrients. We're talking about 54 trace elements, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, you name it. And research is showing that it might have all sorts of health benefits, from fighting cancer and diabetes to relieving arthritis, heart disease, and high blood pressure, and even boosting the immune system. But here's what's really exciting. Seed farming is incredibly environmentally friendly. It doesn't require land, fresh water, fertilizers, or pesticides. It's about as sustainable as it gets. And we can't forget the crucial role that different types of seaweed play in the ocean. You've got microscopic seaweed, phytoplankton, which forms the base of the food web, supporting all sorts of marine life. Then there are the larger seaweeds, like giant kelp, which create underwater forests that are teeming with biodiversity. And on top of all that, seaweeds are important for climate regulation. They absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and release oxygen, helping to combat climate change.
You've given a great overview there, highlighting the many facets of seaweed's importance. From a UPSC perspective, you can look at it from an economic angle, its role in sustainable development and the blue economy. Environmentally, it's linked to the health of marine ecosystems, mitigating climate change through carbon sequestration, and preserving biodiversity. And don't forget about government schemes like the PMMSY, which are specifically designed to support this sector. Seaweed farming is a real win-win. Good for the environment and good for the economy.
It's a great example of how we can work with nature, right? Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about some recent geological activity. Mount Marapi in Indonesia erupted recently, sending a massive plume of ash about 1.5 kilometers high, or 4,900 feet if you prefer, into the sky. It's a stark reminder of the powerful forces at work beneath our feet, especially in regions like this, which are prone to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions.
Absolutely. Mount Marapi is an active volcano located in the Padang Highlands of western Sumatra, Indonesia. It's what's known as a stratovolcano, built up over time by layers of hardened lava, ash, and other volcanic debris. It's also situated within the Ring of Fire, that infamous zone around the Pacific Ocean that's known for its intense seismic and volcanic activity.
Mount Marapi is actually the highest peak in the Padang Highlands, reaching an elevation of 9,485 feet or 2,891 meters. At its summit, there's a large volcanic crater, or caldera, called the Banca caldera, about 1.4 kilometers in diameter, with several overlapping craters within it. And sadly, Mount Marapi has a history of causing destruction. Back in 1979, it produced a massive lahar, which is essentially a volcanic mudflow that tragically killed 60 people. It's worth noting that there's another volcano called Mount Marapi in Indonesia, but that one's on the island of Java. It's easy to get them confused, so just remember the one that erupted recently is Mount Marapi in Sumatra.
The eruption of Mount Marapi is a good example of several important geographical concepts that are relevant to the UPSC. Understanding Indonesia's location within the Ring of Fire is crucial, as well as recognizing the characteristics and potential hazards of stratovolcanoes. And of course, being aware of volcanic hazards like ashfall and lahars falls under the broader topic of disaster management. Knowing the difference between Mount Marapi in Sumatra and Mount Marapi in Java, that's a good detail to keep in mind as well.
It's all about connecting the dots, right? From natural phenomena to potential technological interventions, Delhi's environment minister recently met with several agencies to discuss the possibility of creating artificial rain through a process called cloud seeding. It's an idea that often comes up, especially in places facing water shortages or severe air pollution, like Delhi.
Exactly. Artificial rain, or cloud seeding, is a way of trying to manipulate the weather to encourage rainfall. The main goals are typically to increase rainfall, alleviate drought conditions, and even help clean up the air by washing out pollutants.
So how does cloud seeding actually work? Basically, it involves introducing certain chemicals into clouds, things like silver iodide, potassium iodide, or even dry ice. This is usually done from airplanes or helicopters. These chemicals act as what are called condensation nuclei, which are basically tiny particles that water vapor can condense around. If conditions are right, meaning there's enough moisture in the air and the temperature is suitable, these tiny water droplets can grow bigger and bigger, eventually becoming heavy enough to fall as rain or snow. There are two main approaches to cloud seeding. Hygroscopic seeding is used in warmer clouds to encourage water droplets to collide and merge, forming larger droplets that can fall as rain. Glaciogenic seeding is used in colder clouds, and it involves introducing ice-forming agents that promote the formation of ice crystals. As those ice crystals fall through warmer air, they melt and become rain. It's fascinating stuff, isn't it? Our sources also mention some other less conventional technologies for inducing rain, like using static electricity or even diamond dust, but those are either still in the experimental stage or not very practical at the moment.
Delhi's interest in cloud seeding highlights the complex interplay between science, technology, the environment, and urban planning. For the UPSC, it's important to understand the basic mechanisms of cloud seeding, the different methods that are used, and the potential benefits and drawbacks, especially in the context of a city like Delhi that's struggling with air quality and water scarcity. And being aware of those other, more experimental technologies shows a broader understanding of the field.
It's all about thinking outside the box, right? Now, let's zoom in on some local conservation efforts. Delhi's Forest Department is getting ready to install 45 motion-activated camera traps in the Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary. These camera traps are a great way to collect information about the animals that live there without disturbing them.
Absolutely. The Asola Bhatti Wildlife Sanctuary is part of the South Delhi Ridge, which is part of the Aravalli Range, stretching from Delhi into Haryana. It's a really important green space, especially because it connects the southern ridge to the Indo-Gangetic Plain. It's also a key part of the North Aravalli Leopard Wildlife Corridor, which allows animals, including leopards, to move between Sariska National Park in Rajasthan through parts of Haryana and into the Delhi Ridge.
The vegetation in Asola Bhatti is classified as northern tropical thorn forests. This type of forest is adapted to dry conditions, so you see a lot of plants with thorns, waxy or succulent leaves, and even hairy coverings to help them conserve water. Common trees you'll find there include neem, peepal, and jamun. And of course, there's a wide variety of animals too. You might spot nilgai, Indian porcupines, hares, mongooses, and over 200 species of birds, including peafowl, red junglefowl, and the striking Indian gray hornbill. These camera traps are going to be really valuable for monitoring the wildlife, figuring out how many animals there are, where they're moving, and what they're up to.
The ecological importance of Asola Bhatti, its role in the Aravalli Range, and the Leopard Corridor, those are key points for UPSC environment studies. Knowing the characteristics of northern tropical thorn forests and some of the representative flora and fauna of the region, that's important too. And keeping track of government efforts to monitor and conserve wildlife, like these camera traps, that's always relevant.
Now, let's switch gears to something a little more cultural. There's good news from Kerala. Kannadippaya, a traditional handicraft made by tribal communities, has finally been awarded the Geographical Indication, or GI tag. This is a big deal for preserving and promoting this unique craft.
It is. The name Kannadippaya means mirror mat in the local language, and that's because of the way it's made. It has a beautiful reflective design. They weave these mats from the soft inner layers of reed bamboo, and that gives them amazing thermal properties. They're warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
What makes Kannadippaya really special is its deep connection to the tribal communities of Kerala. It's primarily made by artisans from various tribes, including the Orali, Manen, Muthiva, Malayan, Kadar, Uladan, Malayarayan, and Hilpulaya tribes. These artisans live in the Idukki, Thrissur, Ernakulam, and Palakkad districts of Kerala. The best quality Kannadippaya comes from a specific type of bamboo, Tinastasium whitei, which has a bunch of different local names depending on the region. They also use other types of bamboo, especially from the Ochlandra genus. This GI tag is a major achievement. It's the first time a tribal handicraft from Kerala has received this kind of recognition. It protects the craft and helps ensure that the traditional knowledge and skills are passed on to future generations.
The GI tag for Kannadippaya is important from several UPSC perspectives. It highlights the importance of preserving traditional handicrafts and recognizing the skills and cultural heritage of India's tribal communities. It also showcases the economic impact of GI tags, how they can protect regional products and support local artisans. From a cultural standpoint, understanding the materials used, the specific tribal communities involved, and the geographical concentration of this craft in Kerala, all of that is important. It ties into the larger picture of India's rich cultural tapestry and the efforts to protect and preserve it.
Finally, let's wrap things up with some news from the world of defense and international relations. India and Russia are currently conducting a joint naval exercise called INDRA off the coast of Chennai. The 6-day exercise includes some pretty complex maritime drills and even live weapon firing, showing just how strong the strategic partnership between these two countries is, especially when it comes to maritime security.
Exercise Indra is a major bilateral naval exercise between India and Russia. It's been going on since 2003 and has become a symbol of the close relationship between our two navies. The main focus is on strengthening maritime cooperation, improving interoperability, and developing greater synergy between the Indian and Russian naval forces.
This year's exercise, INDRA 2025, is the 14th edition. It's being conducted in 2 phases. The first phase, the harbor phase, took place in Chennai and involved things like the opening ceremony, expert exchanges, visits between personnel, sporting events, and pre-sale briefings. The second phase, the sea phase, is happening now in the Bay of Bengal. This is where the really advanced drills are taking place. They're doing tactical maneuvers, live weapon firing, anti-air warfare exercises, replenishment at sea, helicopter landings on each other's ships, and even exchanging personnel to get a better understanding of each other's procedures. The Russian Navy has sent several warships, including the Pechanga, Reski, and Aldar Tsedensov. The Indian Navy is participating with its warships Rana and Kuthar, as well as a PAI maritime patrol aircraft. This level of cooperation really shows how committed both countries are to working together to ensure maritime security.
Exercise INDRA is a recurring event that highlights the strategic partnership between India and Russia. For the UPSC, it's crucial to know that it's a bilateral exercise focused on interoperability between the two navies. Understanding the different phases involved, the types of drills they conduct, including live weapon firing, and the specific naval assets that participate, that's all valuable information. It also showcases the geographical context of the exercise, the Bay of Bengal in this case. Exercise INDRA is a clear demonstration of the strong ties between India and Russia in the realm of defense and maritime security.
So there you have it. That's our deep dive for April 5th, 2025, Part 1, packed with information and insights specifically for you, the dedicated UPSC aspirant. We covered a lot of ground today. We explored the environmental challenges facing the Dhansiri River, the curious case of the U.S. tariffs on the Heard and McDonald Islands, the strengthening bond between India and Thailand, the exciting discoveries being made by the TESS satellite, the rising importance of seaweed farming, the eruption of Mount Marapi, Delhi's plans for artificial rain, the wildlife monitoring efforts in Asola Bhatti, the well-deserved GI tag for Kannadippaya, and the impressive display of naval cooperation in exercise INDRA. As you continue your UPSC journey, remember to connect the dots between these seemingly disparate events. See how they fit into the larger themes and issues that the UPSC syllabus covers? It's all about developing that analytical mindset. And if you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with our future episodes. Your journey of learning and preparation never ends, and we're here to help you every step of the way.